with a whole lot of truth. Remedy Revolution is here for you. Ooh. And now here's your host, Erin Paige.
All interviews presented on the Remedy Revolution podcast are designed to provide information and inspiration only. Guests of the podcast may present opinions and anecdotes which are solely their own. And as always, before beginning any treatment protocol, please consult with your preferred medical provider. Hey everyone, welcome to the Remedy Revolution podcast. My name is Erin, and today's guest is somebody who has really taken a lot of the information that we have compiled over the last year and a half, 2 years throughout the podcast and put it in one collective space for people to garner information that perhaps might not be readily available across the interwebs. So thank you very much for being here. I'm happy to introduce Chris Downey of vaxcalc.org.
Well, thank you. It's really great to be here, Erin.
So tell me a little bit about VaxCalc. What is it? What kinds of information are you sharing? And how do people gather that information in order to make an informed choice?
Sure. No, thank you so much. That's a great question. Now, I won't get into the history of it. I actually started, or maybe a little of the history. I started it back in 2009. At the time, it was a small part-time volunteer project that largely grew out of my frustration at how difficult it was to find just basic information about, okay, so what's actually in these vaccines and what's known about the ingredients, and are there any safety standards? And it was just like, it was really frustrating and also shocking that there's no research on safety standards and how much of something can be injected. It's all just assumed to be safe and effective. And then I got kind of, you could say, probably felt like I felt like I was being lied to, because then I learned what safe actually means to the FDA. It doesn't mean to the FDA what normal people think of as safe. If I say, hey, yeah, it's safe, you can go ahead and do that. Go ahead, your child can get on my swing in my front yard because that swing is safe. You think that, it's very unlikely like anything bad's going to happen. I've secured it, I've checked it out, I've used it. Well, but what they mean by safe is that they know that there are some risks, and even some serious risks with a vaccine or a medication. But when they say safe, they mean in their view, it's safer to take the vaccine risks than it is to get to the disease, which isn't always true. And almost no one knew that. I didn't know it, and it made me kind of angry. So I wanted to pour everything I was learning. I didn't want it to just go away with me. At some point, you don't know when you're going to go, and I wanted to find a way to systematize it, to make it available for other people. And that's so VaxCalc has evolved into a platform with 8 major pieces. And the way most people come into contact with it is they get onto our email list. And we have daily emails that go out, and they're very educational. Get into issues of vaccine risk, how do you deal with pediatricians. Pretty much all of them have drunk the Kool-Aid and are going to try to pressure you to fully vaccinate. We have a network of vaccine choice friendly doctors. Are they associated with us? No, we just happen to know some of them and where they are. And we make that available to subscribers. That's actually the hardest part of the system to keep up to date, because the way things are, you could have a pediatrician who's flexible, but on his website or on her website or on their practice's site, they're not going to say that. That's like putting a big target on their back. So they're going to have their vaccine policy. And so it's really like word of mouth and building a network of people that you know and trust who can kind of inform you. It's almost like a modern version of the Underground Railroad in a sense. And so we also have over the past couple years, we've built, and this is number 3.
Sure.
We've built the ability to have secure archives internally. And what I mean by internally is in our own systems that are backed up, and the backups are placed in multiple places, highly secured. The reason for this is because important vaccine risk info, and especially documentaries from maybe 20 or 30 years ago when the news media did their job, these things just disappear. And important documents, and they just become harder and harder to find. And so when we find important research or maybe the NIH or the FDA some years ago, they'd put out a press release, and then they would look back and realize, oh my God, we said too much. We shouldn't have said these things. They'll take it down, or they'll move it to some other part of their website, which is really hard to find. So when we get information, we archive it, meaning that we make a copy that we can put back out online should we need to. And it's been really important to have internal archives, because you can't even trust the Internet Wayback Machine, because it's actually really easy to get information taken off of there. Like if your website had something you didn't want people to see, you would just need to update your robots.txt file. It might be kind of a techie thing, but most people who have websites know what that is. You would just tell it, nah, don't show these documents, don't show this path, and then it just doesn't show it. So it's very easy to disappear things that they don't, whoever doesn't want anyone else to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can attest to that too, because, when I first started researching all of this about 17, 18 years ago, there was quite a bit more information on the internet. I recall a specific instance that I was researching with regard to unethical at best vaccine testing down in South America. And ultimately, I don't know if that information is even searchable anymore, at least not on any of the major Googles or what have you. So I do think that's really important. And it sounds like you have had an extensive background in IT in order to be able to understand the ins and outs of how people hide things on the internet and how to keep things more secure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got around 30 years in software development, pretty hardcore with data, databases, software. And that's, I really started using that in my vaccine journey back close in 2003, when I started digging into VAERS and looking at potential adverse events for the various vaccines that the doctor was telling us that we needed to give to our child. But anyway, so I'll get back onto the platform. So we have, one, daily emails. Number two, the network of choice-friendly doctors. Number three, the secure archives, so that we don't lose information, that we can continue to share it with customers and people.
Right.
Number four is really important. It's a community. We have a private online community where we protect everyone from censorship. We believe in open discussion, and we want to hear about everyone's different experiences and have they tried different health modalities, and there's a number of people in there whose children have had vaccine injuries, and it's important that people can help one another and share their experiences and knowledge, because when you have a good group of people, all together, we know more as a group than any individual knows. And that's one of the things the COVIDians, the COVID tyrants were trying to destroy. They were trying to isolate people, shame you, isolate you, fill you with fear, because when you're in those three states, feeling shame, fear, and definitely isolation, you tend to give in because it just becomes too much. So we've created a place that can't be destroyed like that. It's backed up every single day. I could spin it up if it got taken out, and we won't lose any information. And it's not hosted on big tech, which is really important, because you can't trust big technology, because they're in bed with big tech, big government, big pharma, all helping each other out. And so we're kind of like the alternative or the antidote to this.
Right.
Then number five, curated research that's made easy to read, and about vaccines and ingredients. So it's really important when you're supporting young parents. We have a bunch of young parents as customers, and even grandparents who want to educate their children who now have children. Right. It's important to show the sort of like the 20% that gives you 80% of what you need to know. So people don't have to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours starting from scratch trying to figure out, gosh, this is so confusing. Where do I start? What do I need? We provide that for them. And then if some people want to, they can branch out from there. But they need to know about the vaccines, the ingredients. And the next part of the platform is testimony of vaccine injury. And again, that's also the thing that needs to be preserved in archives. But for every vaccine, you need to be really informed and make a real choice, like what could possibly go wrong. And here's an example of someone giving their own testimony as to what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we have live outbreak data from CDC. And sometimes I say from CDC and people are like, what? You trust them? Well, do I trust them? No. Do I trust their COVID data? Absolutely not. We know how bad that was. It was politicized and compromised. But they have been in the business for decades of tracking outbreak data for many other diseases. And they actually do a decent job. You can count on that being fairly good, like good enough. And what I mean by this is, so it's very hard to find and to keep it updated if you're doing it manually. But they provide like this, what's called open data access, where you can write software that queries their systems, so you get close to real-time outbreak information. So it's really useful. For example, if a parent is considering the whooping cough, pertussis vaccine, DTaP or Tdap,
sure.
or they're worried about measles because they're hearing all these or reading all these things in the news, all of these like, oh my God, there's a measles outbreak and you have to hurry up and go get your kids vaccinated. Well, again, that's like the marketing fear, fear by marketing, which there's so much of. What parents really need is to see a few things. They need data that isn't presented with fear wrapped around it. And so an example of this is in VaxCalc, you could see for pertussis, like right now there might be 119 cases across the entire United States. You have 330 million people. There's 119 cases. Let's say it's like in 9 different states. Last week there were 91 cases, the week before 70 something. So you have a sense, is it going up, is it going down? And we can also show you, like, are there any within 25 miles of you that are known? Are there any 50 miles, 5 miles? And that's really helpful to make a really informed decision and to counteract the panicky fear propaganda that everyone's getting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, was there something else I wanted to say about that? The live outbreak data. No, I think that's, oh yes, there is. Okay, so for pertussis and measles, and it'll be for some other diseases too, you also want to see historical data. So for pertussis, we go back 25 years in a really easy, simple, beautiful chart. So you can see how, during times it spikes way up.
Mm-hmm.
One year you might have 40,000 cases total, and then other times it goes way down. And right now we are in a historically low period for pertussis outbreaks. And it's
mm-hmm.
really helpful to see this.
Mm-hmm.
And then so parents can really be armed with information when they speak to their pediatrician or when they push back or just when they're just considering what they want to do.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's so important, that the data can be overwhelming to a lot of people, and particularly, reading through scientific papers and things like that. Yes. Not everybody's, a science nerd like myself.
Yeah.
and enjoys reading.
Honestly, I'd rather read Lord of the Rings than read a study. It's hideous. And that's actually something else we do. We use we're integrating AI into our stuff, but it's not AI run by big tech or open AI. It's open source created AI, which isn't controlled by anyone. Have you heard of open source?
Yeah.
Software? Okay, so you understand like the freedom roots of this.
Sure.
Like, anyone can contribute to it, anyone can use it. Correct. So the AI is actually phenomenal for simplifying documentation or summarizing things. And I use it all the time for a couple of things. One, I'm dyslexic. So if I get sometimes I'll get like a long email from someone with a few attachments, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't have like 3 hours to read all this. Let me just jam this into the AI and get a quick summary and see if I need to go deeper and where I would need to go deeper at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about that, because I know, there's so much bias in so much of the AI software. And so we're talking about, you might look up something that when it comes back with a response might have a certain political slant or a certain slant on more towards traditional medicine versus any kind of alternative therapy. And so how do we combat that? And how do you see AI working to assist us in propelling this movement forward versus, continuing to put out more and more of the same information propagated by the three-letter agencies, if you will?
Oh, absolutely. Those are excellent questions, and I've been deep into them. So this is absolutely perfect. Thank you for asking those. And if I miss anything, please interrupt, remind, however you want to do it.
Sure.
So yeah, AI bias. I mean, that's a real problem. And here's the thing: software is probably the most complex human creation because it's pure mind stuff. Like there are no laws of physics that apply to it, right? And any software at all that you use has all kinds of biases from the creators, and it doesn't have to be political. If you look at the difference between the Mac and Windows, I mean, you can see what the different biases is, right? Windows was typically more corporate.
Mm-hmm.
The Mac was meant to be more beautiful, powerful, easy to use. It didn't really encourage you to go down to the command line. So that's an example of bias. So any technology has the creator's bias. And today, the technology field is just massively infected with woke thinking. And when someone, I've met a lot of technical people who are woke, and they are obsessed with politics, obsessed with making sure that whatever they create kind of enforces a view. It lectures to people. I mean, you've probably seen that in AI where you actually get lectured by the response. You should check with your doctor and blah, 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 blah.
Right. I think there was such a perfect example with the Google AI, and it came out and
Gemini,
they were
yes.
right. And I can't remember what exactly happened, but essentially they were supposed to create images of Vikings, and they came back with people who were most definitely not of Nordic descent.
Oh, I know. I mean, someone said, create an image of George Washington, and George Washington was black.
Yeah.
They create Nazis. Nazis were black. And I mean, it's crazy. And they I saw this myself. Show an image of a white family, and it wouldn't do that because it's not inclusive. But then you say show an image of a black family, and it creates this black family where the woman looks kind of masculine and strong, and the guy looks like a little feminine and wearing like an earring, and then it says, black families should be supported and celebrated, but you can't see a white family because that's not inclusive. I mean, so that just shows you how off the charts the creators of AI are with injecting their bias in. So then what do you actually do? Well, in open source, we have access to, actually, let me back up before I get into the open source.
Sure.
There's one more really critical thing for people to understand. So when we say AI, we're really talking about AI-driven chatbots that are running off of something called LLMs, or large language models. And it's a large language model, meaning that there's at least 1 billion words in it. And so you can think of an LLM or large language model as really like a massive book. And this book is everything that was ever available on the open internet. And so the problem then, the challenge that the creators of the LLMs have is, there's all this stuff in here, but it's not all equal. So how do we emphasize the truth of some information over other information? So they had to give different websites different weightings. And so, for example, the makers of ChatGPT, OpenAI, very open that they put U.S. government agencies at the very top of the weight for truth and accuracy. And I mean, that's okay if we're looking at weather data for the past month and maybe a prediction for the next week. But I don't really want them to have that kind of weighting with medicine or what they're saying about foreign policy or anything like that. So in a way, how Google over the years became, and Wikipedia became, an amplifier of sort of like the establishment's view of things. Well, AI is also becoming an amplifier of the establishment consensus. And so there's a couple ways we work around that. One, we can use open source LLMs. There's things like GPT for all. And you can download this software and you can load different LLMs into it, including ones that are uncensored. And when they're uncensored, that means like woke developers haven't gone in there to protect you from information about guns or wrong information about health. And if you want, it'll create any kind of poem you want, like limericks that are kind of naughty. It's fun to use those kinds of things. So, but there's also something else too. So any freedom-loving organization actually has an advantage that many don't realize they have. And what that is, as I said, the LLMs are created from the open internet, but there's a ton of info we have that's not on the open internet. We have domain-specific knowledge. And that includes things that have been censored. So, for example, since I've been collecting these archives and saving all this information, for like at least 10 years, because I started to see, I think this is getting pulled down. I think I better find a way to keep it. Well, that becomes knowledge that you can focus the open source AI on and not have it look, at a larger LLM or the open internet. You could just point it at your domain of vaccine risk information and answer questions from that. And so that is, and any company can do that kind of thing. And that's how they can use their internal knowledge combined with AI, disconnected from big tech, to create some kind of competitive advantage. And health freedom community can do the same thing.
Yeah, and I could see that being very helpful. For example, I'm a practicing homeopath. So if I had, AI, which had learned all of my materia medica, for example, then asked questions of the AI, I could see how that could be really beneficial. I do have a question, though, about the weighted knowledge of particular large language models that are currently out there. I know that there's a lot of bots, for example, who are constantly posting on the internet, and those tend to have a slant towards a certain type of information for whatever reason. And what about AI in collective volume of knowledge? So, for example, if there's a lot of bots all saying similar things, is the AI able to recognize that, or does it weight that heavier simply because there's more of that information out there versus the alternative?
The more AI bots put that kind of information out there, the quality of it is just going to keep declining. And again, that would give small organizations and really committed professionals an advantage, because so AI over the next 5 years is going to do a few things. For most people who use it, it's going to reduce their thinking capability from an average of about 5th grade to 3rd grade. Because they're just going to be looking for answers, and they're going to be lazy. They're not really going to think. I mean, they're using it so they don't have to research and think.
Right.
But if you know how to use the chatbots, and one of the most important ways is learning to use it to ask better questions. Keep drilling in. Keep asking why. And in fact, you could try it sometime. Just keep asking ChatGPT to defend its answer. Like, well, why are you saying that? Where's this coming from? And it doesn't take long until you get it gets kind of stuck in this assertion loop, or it'll say, well, the scientific consensus is such, blah, 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 blah. And then you ask it, well, how do you know that? And it just repeats it over and over. So you're able to get, very quickly to the core of where its knowledge stops and what its assumptions are. But you can learn to do like sales jobs on AI. So for example, if I want to talk to AI about vaccine injury without it being defensive and lecturing me, I'll say things like, well, just for the sake of argument, because I want to have a talk with someone who really believes this, and I'm not really sure, but this is what's being said, and this is what my question is. So just for the sake of argument, could vaccines do blah, blah, blah? And when you kind of wrap it like that, it's almost like its guard goes down. And you can get a little more truth. And asking better questions too, it's like another way to think about that is you need to always check what, like, you need to know something about what you're asking it, or else you just have no grounds for knowing, is this accurate or not. And an example would be, I uploaded a vaccine package insert to ChatGPT, and I asked it to summarize the most serious adverse events for me in order of their occurrence. And I noticed that it didn't say anything about death when the package insert clearly stated that. And I asked it about it, and it resisted using the word. It just wouldn't use the word death. I had to press it over and over, challenges like, look, I would tell it, like, this is an FDA approved document. You are refusing to use the word death. Why is that? And so in a way, you need to treat AI like a smart intern that has his or her own agenda and push. And there was even a study, I think it came out really recently, like December or so, from Microsoft, where they discovered that if you use emotional language, you can actually get better answers from AI, which is intriguing. Yeah.
I'm wondering, thinking out loud here, can we affect change as, private citizens? For example, if we all went into ChatGPT and began doing like what you did, entering things like the vaccine inserts and giving it proper questions, are we able to affect any kind of change, or do you think the algorithms are so heavily weighted against us at this point that that's probably not going to happen?
Yeah, I think that's unlikely when you're using a big tech product. But when you do that kind of thing, you get into the practice of being more assertive with the tech that you're using. So that's really good, and it's good to teach it to other people, teach it to your kids. I mean, I know I was really shocked some years ago in my young teens. I forget what they were looking into, some kind of question. I forget what the question was. I heard the answer. I was like, that doesn't sound right. And they just looked at me like, yeah, but the internet told me. I was like, really? Okay, well that's a problem. The internet can tell us all kinds of things.
Right.
So yeah. So what you're saying is that's a good idea to learn how to be more assertive with the tech that you use, and that will also help you learn to ask better questions and be fooled less.
Yeah. So tell me in particular, so using VaxCalc, what kinds of questions are going to be very effective for people to ask in order to kind of get at some of the answers that they're perhaps seeking?
Oh, you mean with like the vaccine risk aware chatbot that we're working on?
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's really good, and that hasn't been released yet. It's just the quality is not good enough.
Got it.
I don't really have a good answer for that. Another way that we're that we're working to remove, because even with the open source LLMs, there's definitely a bias because they all have the open internet, as their foundation, and that kind of weighting as their foundation. So what I've been experimenting with is training it on lots and lots of question and answers related to vaccines, as well as reducing its focus. Like, I don't want it looking at the world of everything it knows, just the knowledge base that we have. And when I say knowledge base, I mean, we can connect it to databases. You can connect it to VAERS. You can connect it to our database of vaccines and ingredients. You can point, all at the same time, by the way, point it to documents of vaccine injury testimony, good studies, all that kind of stuff. So let me see.
I suppose I could see a huge use for that. For example, if mom and dad are at the pediatrician, new baby, obviously you've got, as a mom, hormones running through you, you've got, you're sleep deprived, all of these things. And now you're at the pediatrician having to defend yourself and your position with regard to what you want to do with your own child. And so I could see, for example, utilizing VaxCalc in that in that way and very effectively, because, in those instances where we just, we can't have the recall ability to pull up every single study to answer every single question. So I see that being very useful in those kinds of scenarios.
No, that's true. I mean, that's a really good point. I mean, another way the chatbot could be really useful to parents is preparing, before they go.
Right.
The chatbot can play the role of a mean, pushy doctor. So they can get used to the kind of things they're going to hear and actually practice what they are going to say. But, we also, one of the things we do on our daily emails, there are emails that come out and we have more materials on how do you deal with these difficult doctors? Because not everyone should, especially when they're tired, pull out their phone and do the chatbot thing.
Sure.
That could be too much. There are techniques that are really important and approaches to think about, like 80-20, for example. Like, we want to do maybe 20% to get 80% of the benefits, because the doctors are always pushing the 100% of the schedule. They have to be 100% vaccinated. Well, one of the things that we encourage parents to do is when they hear that, right, the whole full vaccination thing, they should ask, well, what vaccines does my child not need? And if the doctor won't answer that, then you can say something like, well, are you saying that every one of these diseases is like equal in seriousness? Wait, what are the 3 most serious diseases that you can vaccinate for? I mean, really push them to force them to use their thinking, because they're out of practice. They're just doing checkbox medicine. Or, if a parent really just doesn't want to deal with it, and all they wanted to do was get a checkup, then just get a checkup. And when the doctor says, well, we'll be vaccinating today, just say, well, no, not today. We're not vaccinating today. I'm not ready. I want more time to think this through. And I have some questions. Right. Or just not today. In a way, it's sort of like dating, right? No means no.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think that's hugely important. I think there are many parents who have been pressured in the moment to, get their child vaccines, even in the ER, for example. They're pushing tetanus, which doesn't exist, by the way, for those listening. There is no single tetanus vaccine. You have to get Tdap or DTaP, which, as Chris and I both know, is very problematic. It's one of those vaccines that does have a significant number of documented adverse events. So, I'm sure that being prepared with the knowledge going into it, and my child is almost 17 now, but so prior to me going to pediatricians and whatnot, even though he was born at home, having to have all of that information gathered was intense at that time. I had to have all my folders. I had to know my stuff inside and out. And thankfully, we have resources out there like VaxCalc now, where parents can have that list of compiled information. They are prepared for any question that might come at them, and they feel more confident in their answers. And I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle. Is they might have had the knowledge or read some of this documentation, but getting to that place where you're standing in front of a doctor can be rather intimidating for a lot of people. And so the ability to say no, or, not today even, right, can be, terrifying for a lot of people.
One of the best college course I ever had, it was this advanced seminar, and I was able to take it in my sophomore year with the absolute best college professor, Professor McClure at Syracuse University. And it was called Professionalism and Democracy. And the whole course was about the problems that professionals pose to democracy and freedom. I mean, we see it with all kinds of experts. We see it with doctors, that they think they know best for everyone because they did all this work. They think they're really smart, and they're smart. It's not easy to get through medical school, but it's not their place to tell us what to do. And one of the things our Professor McClure recommended, just to kind of experience what it's like to do this, to put yourself on an equal level with a professional, is when you go into the doctor's office, to just call him by his first name and sit back and see how they respond. It's really fun, because they all hate it. But if they're going to be rude to you, why not just call, hey, Bob, Bob, no, we're not vaccinating today. And it's kind of it's actually a good skill to have to become comfortable with making other people uncomfortable, because you really do need that skill to protect your children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a sad statement, unfortunately, but
It's
very
probably
much the case. Just as a sidebar, my son went through an emergency room scenario where he had acute appendicitis, and we had to take him in. And I said, I would like to get an ultrasound and see what's going on. And I had an ER doctor say to me, "You're going to kill your child if you do not take him back into surgery right now." And I looked at her, I said, "Excuse me?" No. You're not taking my child back into surgery. I don't even know if this is acute appendicitis. At that point, we didn't know.
Right.
And there was some confirmatory symptoms and others that didn't really line up with that diagnosis. So, so for me, I think I guess I've developed a very tough skin over the years, and doctors don't really scare me, but I know that there are people who do feel that way, and particularly in emergency situations where you don't know what to do. You're not armed with the knowledge all the time, and so it is important to really educate ourselves and unfortunately educate ourselves towards worst case scenario situations so that we know
Yeah.
what to do.
And it goes even farther than that. There's a lot of young parents that are very intimidated because they're young. And
Mhm.
oftentimes it's one parent, usually the mom, that goes in, and she's really tired. And she might even have a second child with her. And when you're tired, it's difficult to think straight. It's difficult to have, like, your willpower is almost gone. And the stress gets too much and you just want it to be over. And so sometimes they'll just say, okay, yes, go ahead, and then regret it later. And
Mhm.
so one of the things we talk about is, bring a friend. Don't go alone to these appointments.
Mhm.
Bring a friend who supports you and that you really trust, so they can back you up, so that you're not just alone. Because oftentimes you'll have a nurse there pulling out the vaccines, you have the doctor, and you feel like kind of cornered and by yourself. And oftentimes the parents feel stupid, when in
Right.
fact they're not. There's no one who knows their child better than they do. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was the idea of a healthcare roundtable. Like, someone like you is really important. No one should just have a single, primary care physician. That's a recipe for disaster. We need a whole group of advisors. You can have a pediatrician, but man, you should have a good homeopath. You should have others, so that way, if that pediatrician, decides to kick you out of their practice, in a way, it doesn't really matter. But if that's all you have, then it's very stressful. But if you have Erin on your side as someone else that you consult with, it's like, well, screw you.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I over the years have had a lot of patients who are working with a number of other doctors, and they always ask me, "Is that okay?" I'm like, "Absolutely. I would much rather you get opinions from multiple people,
Yes.
or the idea of like, well, I have one doctor who is able to run tests for me. I have one doctor who is able to prescribe homeopathic medicine. I have one doctor who is able to do manual therapies like acupuncture. Those kinds of things are really important because the body is not, we aren't just one part and parcel. You're not just your heart or your lungs or all of those things. And just as we are not made up of one organ system, there are a number of modalities that can be really useful and helpful in our healing journeys. And I say healing journeys because I think we're all on a healing journey.
Absolutely.
We're all here to find healing regardless of how we're feeling day to day. We might be here to heal our hearts, our emotions, or our minds. So I think it's really important that we do understand that there are a multitude of people who can assist us in that journey. So I love that you're advocating for that kind of diverse background of practitioners to really assist. And healer actually means teacher. So, I take my job very, very seriously. I think ultimately I'm here to guide and teach and assist in healing, in the body doing the healing itself.
Right.
I'm not the one doing the healing. You are. I'm here to teach you what might be helpful to get there.
Oh, that's perfect. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. So, Chris, tell us just briefly here, because I do want to make sure that we address it. But I'm curious, how did VaxCalc get started? I know you alluded to it in the beginning, but I always say we don't. Most of us in this space do not arrive here, with our gung ho attitude. Most of us are drug here, kicking and screaming.
No, thank you for the question. Well, the seed of it was planted with when we were interviewing pediatricians back in 2003. My daughter, first child, was not yet born, and I was a young software developer thinking I'm real smart, kind of arrogant, reading The Economist every week, the whole thing. Didn't really think about vaccines very much at all. And if it wasn't for this experience, I might have been close to a full vaccinator without thinking about it. But so in every interview, I liked all the pediatricians I met. They seemed like really wonderful people. Like they cared, they're professional, nice demeanor, easy to talk to. But until you got to vaccines, and I didn't even bring it up the first couple times. They mentioned the importance of how my daughter would need the hepatitis B shot within 24 hours of her birth. And that had me confused. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Okay, hold on a second. Hep B, that's hepatitis B. Isn't that the disease that you can get through using like dirty needles shared with drug addicts or sleeping with a whole lot of prostitutes? I mean, so why does she need this? And, I couldn't get any answer that had anything to do with her life. So they would say things like, well, she might get bit in daycare. It's like, well, she's not going to daycare. So then what else is there? She might need a blood transfusion. I said, well, do you got any data on how likely that is? This sounds like BS to me. And then, one of the doctors even said, well, we'll have to report your refusal. And I'm like, I looked at him, I was like, am I in 8th grade? Like, am I in 8th grade here? What do you mean you're going to report my refusal? What is this? And who are you reporting to? This is really weird. And so I left all those interviews thinking, either all of them are lying to me, or someone lied to them and they don't even know it. This is not right. And it was really pissing me off because it's like, they're like messing with my daughter. And they can't justify it. And they're giving me all these reasons that have nothing to do with her life or my life. And then they're getting weird when I ask questions. You really can't trust anyone who gets weird when you ask questions. So that started me digging. And then in 2009, I attended NVIC, National Vaccine Information Center, International Conference on Vaccines. And I was talking to a bunch of people, and it's like, a lot of them were really confused about how do you find more information on what's in the vaccines? Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, that's when it really hit me. It's like, okay, I've done a ton of research. I didn't even realize how much I've done. And all these smart people here who really care about this issue, and many of whom have vaccine injured kids, they don't even know how to find all this stuff. And it's really hard because it's buried in the package inserts. And it has all these chemical biological names, and the names they could be one chemical could have 13 different names. And so I just started writing a program as a volunteer project for NVIC. And then fast forward about maybe 6 or 7 years, I wanted to turn it into something I could dedicate the rest of my life to, and turn it into a small business so I could hire a team. And then the business could exist beyond me, or for however long it needs to. So that's the story there. Thanks for letting me share that. even if it was
Absolutely. No, I think that's so important. We all come to this, like I said, usually kicking and screaming. And so, but once we get here, I am hopefully we do find this amazing tribe, because I do feel that, so many of the people who have been really beating the drum for medical freedom, for vaccine choice over the last several years are lovely people, wonderful people,
Yep.
and we're dedicated to a mission beyond ourselves. And I think that that is really the key here is,
Yes.
we're looking forward to future generations, to our children and our children's
Absolutely.
children.
And the thing is about the people in our movement, I feel like every one of them is very courageous because it takes courage to live with freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It's not fun being censored and called all kinds of names. It certainly isn't the way I would prefer to live my life,
Right.
but I also know that the truth is more important
Yeah, and
than
what you just said there about like being called all kinds of names, it's not pleasant. I totally agree, but you reminded me of an Abraham Lincoln quote where, he said something along the lines of when everyone was angry at him and insulting everything, he knew he was onto something right.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. All right, Chris. Well, we are now at the tail end of our episode here, where I ask every single one of our guests our 8 rapid fire questions. They're
All
designed
right.
to give us a little bit more insight into who you are and what
This is
makes you
great,
tick.
and I did not prepare. This is good.
Good.
I love
Good.
this. This is going to be fun.
All right. Number 1, if you could choose only one natural remedy for the rest of your life, what would it be?
A natural remedy, does it have to be something you take or could it be a practice?
It can be whatever you like.
Wim Hof method, the breathing in the ice bath, I do it every morning. I always felt I was pretty healthy, but like my energy level, I feel like it's like 25 years ago after doing it, even for just a few months. Wim Hof method by far.
Amazing. Well, I live right here by Lake Travis, so maybe I should go down there, check it out. All right. Number 2, tell us something most people don't know about you.
Interesting. Most people don't know I'm dyslexic, which means like I read really slow, but I can be creative. Also, most people don't know that in 7th and 8th grade, I was suspended 20 times and almost expelled from the school system twice because I was very rebellious. And I still am, and that's why I love doing what I do.
Awesome. If I were to compile a playlist of happy music, what song would you suggest be added?
Okay, just one song for happy music?
Yeah.
Oh man, the first thing that's coming up, I'm a big headbanger. I love metal, AC/DC, Sabbath, but for happy music, Good Day Sunshine by the Beatles.
Nice. I'm a huge Beatles fan. So. Awesome. All right. What is your favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh man, guilty pleasure. I almost don't want to tell people this. Like, so if there's a stash of marshmallows and the small ones for cocoa that people like, I will, when no one's looking, grab a nice handful and just kind of put it in my pocket and eat it.
Awesome. What is the most influential book you've ever read?
Oh man, okay. Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know if you could see, I'm turning around here because I have so many books. All right, most influential probably has to be Lord of the Rings. All right. I started that when I was a kid, and I've read it over and over. I love the movie. It's just the reason it's most influential. It's the whole good versus evil and how damn scary evil can be, and yet it's like the smallest among us that defeats that evil, and not alone, but with a group of friends. But yet there are parts of that journey that you just have to do alone. I mean, it's such a beautiful book in so many ways.
Nice. I love that. Very poetic. What does the word revolution mean to you?
Revolution? I think it depends what word comes before it. Are we talking like French Revolution, American Revolution? So when I hear revolution, like a change in the way of thinking, a change in the way of living. It could be people. We've had enough. So when I hear revolution, I think of the American Revolution and all its fantastic ideals, but also really having a lot of skin in the game. Putting your butt on the line for what you believe. It's not risk free. A revolution can go bad, and yet it holds the promise of something better.
I love that. All right. And what does the word remedy mean to you?
I'm sorry, what was that word?
Remedy.
Oh, remedy, like a homeopathic remedy, something. Okay, so yeah, like I practice homeopathy, not myself. I see a classical homeopath. So when I hear remedy, actually, do I have one right here? I have my little daily remedies. I don't know if I'm going to be on screen or not. But what does the word remedy mean? The way I understand the remedy from my homeopath is it's something that assists me in becoming stronger and healthier, and with the word assist. So I can't do dumb things, unhealthy, harmful things while taking a remedy. It's like I need to align with the intent of that remedy and live in such a way that is in alignment with it so that it can work better.
Absolutely. Your homeopath is very wise. That's true. All right. If you could impart one piece of wisdom onto our listeners, what would that be?
Wow. Listen to more of your podcasts.
All right, done deal. Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you listening who are not following on Instagram, we are at Remedy Revolution Podcast. You can also find us on any of the podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple, where we have so far not been censored, but and we'd like to keep it that way. So please share, please give people, send people these episodes. If you have found this episode with Chris Downey to be useful, please forward it on to your friends and family. Please go to vaxcalc.org to learn more about the amazing work that Chris is doing to get more of those useful tips and tricks in order to empower and encourage yourself to do the work and to be courageous. So thank you so much, Chris, for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care.
With hope as a guiding light, through darkest days we'll fight the night. With a whole lot of passion, with a whole lot of truth, Remedy Revolution is here for you.